Judge, I'm checking the list of attendees. If you see anybody on there that needs to be over, I'm trying to match that up with what I have on my list. I don't see anybody in the attendees list that needs to be in there, but I could be missing somebody.
Okay, it would be Magistrate Graham or Joe Graham. I don't see the list. Oh, over in participants, right?
Yeah, change that.
He's not in there.
Okay.
Gotcha.
We are streaming live on Facebook as well.
Okay.
Good.
On our Bluegrass ad page if somebody wants to share that.
Mm-hmm.
Travis posted on Facebook. Here we are.
Any more words from Magistrate Graham?
Let me try calling.
Sure.
There he is.
Put your glasses on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Joe.
Okay. Sorry, had some technical problems.
I'll
Gotcha.
have that.
Okay. Now that we have everyone here, I'd like to start with the invocation. This is a historical prayer borrowed from Franklin Delano Roosevelt just before Doomsday, or D-Day, I guess. Help us, Almighty God, to rededicate ourselves in renewed faith in Thee in this hour of great sacrifice. I ask that our people devote themselves in a continuance of prayer as we rise each new day, and again, when each day is spent. Let words of prayer be on our lips, invoking Thy help to our efforts. And, O Lord, give us faith. Give us faith in Thee, faith in our sons, faith in each other, faith in our united crusade. Let not the keenness of our spirit be ever dulled. Let not the impacts of temporary events, of temporal matters, of but fleeting moment, let not these deter us in our unconquerable purpose. Help us to conquer the apostles of greed and racial arrogance. Lead us to the saving of our country and into a world unity that will spell a sure peace, a peace invulnerable to the schemings of unworthy men, and a peace that will let all men live in freedom, reaping the just rewards of their honest toil. Thy will be done, Almighty God. Amen.
And
And now the pledge. The flag of the
United States of America,
To
to the republic,
the republic for which it
stands,
stands, one nation,
States,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty,
liberty, justice for all.
Call the meeting to order and ask the clerk for the roll.
Present.
Constantopoulos,
Here.
Davis,
Present.
Thompson,
Here.
Graham,
Present.
and Blanton.
Here.
Judge is here as well. Item number 6 on the agenda, consider approval of the minutes from the April 8th, 2020 fiscal court meeting.
We got the adoption of the agenda first.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped that, didn't I? Item number 5, adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Judge, a question.
Sir,
Since this meeting constitutes a special meeting, is it appropriate to have magistrate comments in item 19? I know the rule is we're supposed to just stick strictly with the
I
item.
believe that is a typographical error, so please remove that from the agenda. You're correct. So the adoption of the agenda has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, moving on to item number 6, consider approval of the minutes from the April 8th, 2020 fiscal court meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Question,
Sure.
should these minutes have some indication they were held via Zoom or not in person or something on, as a note on these minutes?
County Attorney Elkins, should we note that in the minutes?
You're on mute.
You need to unmute, William.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I say for historical significance, I think that would be a good idea. I don't think it's an absolute requirement, but certainly a good idea.
Okay. I'll go ahead and accept that as a friendly amendment. Michelle, if you could note that, I'd appreciate it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7, consider approval of the minutes from the April 23rd, 2020 fiscal court meeting. I will incorporate Robert's suggestion in those minutes as well. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8, consider approval of the minutes from the April 29th, 2020 special called budget meeting. I will also accept Robert's suggestion into those minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion,
I'll
was there a
second it.
second? Okay,
Okay, who was that
Motion.
from?
Magistrate Thompson was the first, and then I was the second.
motion by Magistrate Thompson, seconded by Magistrate Constantopoulos. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9, a note in your minutes, indigent burial, Paul Lanzall, date of death, April 29th, 2020. Item number 10, discussion of the quarterly treasurer's report. I included this on the agenda because of some questions raised by Magistrate Thompson. as well as a request from former Judge Executive Henry Branham that he emailed me. So I guess Magistrate Thompson, do you have some discussion?
Yeah, I just would like the answer to my question.
Okay. Any further discussion, anyone? Or anyone would like to address Mr. Thompson? I'll be glad to do what I can. Okay. I'm going to attempt something new here. I'm trying to share my screen with you guys. Let me know if this screen shares.
Yes,
Can you see that?
yes.
Okay. At our last meeting, it was pointed out on the quarterly treasurer's report that there was a amount of outstanding checks that were not tracked down, hadn't been recorded yet, $8,631.32. On this PDF in front of you, you should see the vast majority of those checks. And spoken with the treasurer quite simply. As you know, she's been on staff here for a little over a month. When she moved into the office, there were, and I can vouch for this, boxes and boxes of documents. She was unable to find the record of all of the outstanding checks at the time the report was submitted, but since then she has found these remaining checks. There's also a $15 discrepancy that I believe there was a question about. I think that had to do with some improper posting against the account, perhaps a few months back. County Attorney Elkins, can you address that for me?
I can. And Judge, like you, I might be able to share my screen, but I think this is simply put. On September 29th, 2019, the treasurer issued a check for $15 to Cantrell Electric. That check cleared Community Trust Bank on October the 2nd, 2019. On October 24th, 2019, the treasurer issued a second check. Somebody, and I don't know who that would be, made a notation on the check in handwriting that said duplicate check, and then added that check to the outstanding check balance that was caused the $15 discrepancy that Master Thompson raised last month. Good catch on his part. I don't know that any of us would have found that had we not had to go looking for it. But so the way the checks were represented in the system, one of them had actually come to the bank and the other one was left in a right-hand desk drawer with that notation on it. If somebody wants me to attempt to share it, and I'll do what I can. I don't know if I hit that share screen button, what you get, but I'd be glad to try.
Okay. And I believe, William, correct me if I'm wrong, if you add up all the checks plus the $15, that does represent the total amount that was reported as unrecorded, correct?
Judge, if you scroll back through the document you're sharing and you see that Cantrell Electric check there in the amount of $15, and the answer to that is yes.
Well, I just wrote 15 on the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might have them right here where I can hold them up and show them to you. That's kind of questionable too. Judge, I started to share that, and when I did, it said that if I attempt to share my screen, then you're going to lose your share. If you don't mind me trying that, I'll try it at this time.
Go for it. I stopped.
Okay. So I think, it's what I've been talking to you about is, let me see if I can raise this either to the top or the bottom. How did you make that go up and down?
Your cursor on the side there.
I got it right here. So this check was written to Cantrell Supply. I highlighted that there. That's not actually on the copy of the check as it printed from the bank. On September 26, 2019, to Cantrell Electric. I highlighted the date that you can see where it actually passed through Community Trust Bank. And then I will show you another check number here. This check, because it still has this stub attached to it and still has this check attached to it, obviously never left the building. It was issued on October 24th, 2019. The handwriting here, duplicate payment, check number 19179. If you look back here, that happens to be the same number. So when we look at the checks inside the software, 5.2 version of this software, one of them shows that it's been through the bank. That affects the checking account balance, and the other one shows that it's outstanding, was issued by the software. The matter is it never left the building. So I don't know any more intricacies than that, other than to say that in hunting down what that $15 difference was, this is it.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'd like to go back to my share screen, William.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, did you stop sharing?
Can you tell me how?
Should be a button up at the top or bottom one.
Let me see what I can do here.
There you go. There you go.
You got it.
Yep. The next issue I'd like to address has to do with the FCAS Treasurer software. A lot of questions that were raised about line item 01511012330. I hope I'm not going to bore everybody to death out there, but I'm going to do the best I can to answer that question. It has to do with our accounting software and a balance that showed up in a account that basically should have been deleted a few years ago, but for some reason was only flagged not to report or not to print, caused some issues with the new treasurer. I've heard some pretty wild comments about how was this account made up? Where did this account come from? As if it just showed up out of the blue. So something I'd like to share with you all. I've been able to go back so far about 10 years of records, just looking for this particular account number. I'm going to start with the year 2011. Checking account reconciliation. This is just one out of the year. There's plenty. As you can see, it's dated and signed. Look at the next page, dated and signed. So this is a true document. And here is the mysterious account number, 01510112230 in the year 2011. And moving forward, we have another true document from 2012. And as you see at the bottom of this screen, if I don't mess this up here, there's that line item again. 2013, true document. And there's the line item once again. 2014, the line item once again at the end of this. 2015, another signed, dated, true document. And again, we're going to find that line item that couldn't be explained. No one could understand where it came from exactly, but here it is again and again. It literally riddles county records throughout the years. Another signed, true document. There it is again. Moving forward in time to 2017, we have a signed and true document. And then we get to the year 2018. And here's an interesting thing that happens in the year 2018. This is our budget from that year, I believe. Wait, this is the financial statement, I'm sorry. C-chip salaries, line item 0151011060, which basically represents the home incarceration coordinator's salary plus assistance, is inserted into the financial document. So I spoke with Kathy Dillo, who is the person who helped design and owns the license to this software, is probably the only true expert on this software, not only in Kentucky, but probably in the world. After her examination, she tells me that line item 0151011230 was replaced by C-chip salaries, flagged not to report, not to print, so that it wouldn't show up on any of these documents, but it was not properly deleted. I'm going to tell you why that's important in a moment, but she tells me just as a when a line item is zeroed out, it should be taken off of the reports, not flagged, not to print. It should be deleted forever for the next fiscal year's budget. Unfortunately, that didn't happen here. So, fiscal year 2018, you look at this budget, you see it has both line items on it. 0151011060 C-chip salaries, 0151011230. I think a reasonable person might wonder why this number was on there with a zero if both of those positions were already represented in line item 0151011060. I can't answer that question for you. I can just tell you the budget expert says it shouldn't be there, should have been deleted. Fiscal year 2019, another true document if you see the signatures and check the dates. Now this is the budget where it disappears from the document, but once again, based on the expert's opinion, 0151011230 was flagged not to print, but it was not deleted from the software as it should have been. So, moving forward to some payroll issues. If you look at our payroll, this is from 16-17. If you look at the number 15101-123 home incarceration. Moving down, you'll see it's also there in the year 17-18, this report from 2018. And let me flip this for you. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to figure out how to do this throughout the whole document, but I will fix it now. And here we have Division 1, 5101, 123. If you check the date on this, this is the year 2019. So obviously this had been a deleted line item. It had been changed on the budget, but if you look on our payroll report, that is first sent from the finance officer, then to payroll solutions, then comes back to the finance officer and treasurer, that line item was still incorrectly coded on our payroll software. That caused a problem. I do want to assure you one thing, just for your own knowledge. If you look down here, this is a new sheet from more current payroll. My new finance officer, Cheryl Wills, was able to go into the software. She was able to correct it so that it reflected the appropriate line item from the budget, just in case any of you had questions whether or not that was possible. Yes, it is possible. It has been done by Ms. Wills, and just as with the budget, it should have been done a couple years ago. So to walk you through the process, what happens generally is this report comes back to the treasurer. The treasurer reads this report verbatim, enters the line item as it is on this report into the budget software. So if you didn't know any better, any one of us would type 015101-106 for this because it's the right number. But on a previous one with the incorrect number, as it was when the new treasurer took office, it would reflect 015101-123, which is the line item that's in question and that some people would have you think was invented in the past few weeks, when in fact it has been around for a decade, if not longer. So when people ask me, where did this line item come from? I can tell you with certainty, it either came from the prior administration or an administration before that. But I can show you hundreds of documents with this line item on it, signed by the previous administration, and if I am asked to go back far enough, perhaps administrations before that. So that cures the issue of the mysterious line item. Now, one concern that I have, just for the sake of the public, is I've read some things and I've heard some comments that would lead you to believe that we need to send this report to the Department for Local Government. And my thought on that would be, I haven't been judge executive a long time. I've just been judge executive for a year. But one of the first things I learned is every quarterly report is sent to the Department for Local Government. So anyone out there in the public who may be trying to lead you to believe that this report is not the knowledge of the state local finance officer or the Department for Local Government, you may want to question where they're coming from. You may want to question their political agenda, because I believe County Attorney Elkins, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there a Kentucky revised statute that requires us to report these to the Department for Local Government?
That's correct, Judge. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
That is true. There is a requirement that that be shared with the DLG, and on top of that, our coordinator, Jared Taylor, I believe it is, I sent him an email along with a PDF copy of that report on the 13th of April, which I think was probably before anybody had seen it, to give him the explanation about about how that claim was tracked across that payroll. It began as a claim against line item 5101-1230, but had been mysteriously paid for some time against line item 5101-1060 without court approval. And then whenever the new treasurer paid the claim as presented against 5101-1230, when the report printed, that was her first opportunity to see for herself that there was a negative line item there, and that's what created that situation. I personally notified the DLG about that by email, and be glad to share that email with anybody that wants to see it. And I'd encourage them to contact DLG and ask for it. It's dated April 13th at 4:38 p.m.
So this report has basically been sitting on the desk at the DLG, and they've had an opportunity to review it for over a month, correct?
Well, I didn't send them that payroll document, but the report itself was sent back.
Yeah, I'm talking about the report that's been called into question by some folks. I'm not talking about this payroll document.
Correct.
Would it be fair to say, and I guess maybe you don't need to comment, but if there were anyone out there in the public who had many years of experience in local government that attempted to lead people to believe that the Department for Local Government didn't receive quarterly reports from county government, or for some reason tried to lead people to believe that this line item that has been called into question just appeared out of nowhere, I kind of feel like that might be a practice of deceit. Maybe someone's trying to mislead folks out there. So I would just simply caution people, when you see things, don't believe everything you read, and make sure you remember everyone's political agenda and take it all with a grain of salt. And that'd be my only suggestion.
Hey, Judge, if you would, just let me clear one thing up. What happened was, because I opened it while we were talking, I sent that email to DLG on April, as I suggested, on the 13th, and Jared Taylor's response to me on the 14th at 8:24 a.m. in the morning. Now that was before the report was due on the 15th. He said, "Thank you for keeping us in the loop on this. Best regards, Jared Taylor."
So certainly an official at the DLG had the opportunity to review it at least by the 15th, we know.
Correct.
I have one more question just about reporting in general, and this may tax your knowledge of the software, but I think you probably know the answer. If the new treasurer had wanted to go into the software, kind of go behind the curtain without anyone looking and adjust the report so that the line item applied had not showed up and it would have gone to the other line item, even though it hadn't, been represented on that payroll report. If she wanted to go back in time and fix that and hide it from us, could she have done that?
Well, I want to preface my answer with saying this. I think it's important that people keep in mind that the treasurer that we have today, had she been hired in a regular cycle, she would have came to this difficult time in accounting when all these budgets are running out and when there's so much budget cycle work to be done, with at least an additional 10 or 11 months experience. Instead, she came into this briar patch and it was imploding or exploding everywhere. So I want to get that out there first. And the second thing is that she wasn't retained for the purpose of settling the previous treasurer's books, and all the accounting that she does sits on top of all the things that he did, both known to us and unknown to us. And to answer your question, when it was discovered, before I wrote the letter to the members of this fiscal court, which is actually the letter that I passed on to Jared Taylor, she asked me about whether or not we could reclassify or should reclassify that payment to the 1060 line item. And I told her, for the sake of transparency, that we should leave it exactly the way it was, because the claim tracked across the entire accounting beginning to end on that 5101-1230 line item account, and it should remain there unless the fiscal court determined to make some change to that. And so, without any concern or fear or ashamedness, we presented that to the DLG with 100% transparency. There's nothing here that on that payroll or that account that was done improper since March 17th.
Okay, I understand that. All right, well, I'd like to commend the treasurer for at least posting a true and accurate report, even if perhaps it made her not look in the best light, but considering the situation, I just want to congratulate her for her honesty.
Yeah, Judge, and one question too, just to clarify, and not everybody may know this, but because it happened, I think, at our first meeting when we were meeting in person, social distancing, and streaming on social media. But this court unanimously hired Kathy Dillow as a consultant to help come in and help with our practices and train on the software and make recommendations on changes that we need to make in the accounting practices that we've had in the past. So I just think it's important that everybody knows that we have retained somebody. She actually helped, facilitate the quarterly reports to make sure that they were reporting accurately, and then, has helped moving forward. So I just think it's important that everybody knows that as well.
Thank you. Okay.
Judge, just a couple of things when you're done. I don't want to interrupt you.
Go ahead, Travis.
I'm correct that line item was not in the fiscal year 2020 budget, correct?
You are correct.
Okay. So you're telling me that it got there by entering it incorrectly from a payroll report?
I'm telling you, to my knowledge, granted, I have never logged on to the payroll system, nor have I logged on to the treasury system, so I'm no expert on those things.
Nor am I.
But to my knowledge, it was entered because of a payroll sheet that reflected the wrong number. Correct.
Okay, but we can all agree that we didn't approve that line item in the budget.
Well, that line item was not in the budget that I'm aware of.
It's not. I went to the clerk's office and pulled it.
Anything else, Travis?
No, I just wanted to clarify that wasn't in the budget. It's also not on the standing order that you referenced. So I was never unclear that the report, I knew the report went to the state because I asked you and you told me that it did because it's required to. My concern was simply that it had an account that was created that was not in the budget, that was not created by transfer or by vote of the fiscal court, and that we simply had a negative balance that went in a quarterly treasurer's report, and that concerned me. So that was my concern, and that was a fact. And we did not authorize the account. That was also a fact. So I would just point those out.
Thank you, Master Thompson. Is there any further discussion?
Let me add, Let me add one thing to that, because I don't think that was a completely, and I don't think there was any intended inaccuracy there, but the statute regarding standing order says, that payroll can be on your standing order.
And it is.
And so payroll's on your standing order, and other things approved by the fiscal court and the state local finance officer. So I don't think, for the sake of the public, anybody should be led to miss the point that the documents that the judge has shared here that have so much redaction and blacking out on them are payrolls that were approved by this fiscal court with standing order, right on and on and on. And then they are presented in the form of claims and through the payroll solutions folks and back out to the treasurer's office by that standing order approval. And that claim should track across the accounting beginning to end on the same line item. That's what happened here. And had the software not had that line item as demonstrated by the judge within its platform, this entry wouldn't have been possible. So even though it wasn't printed on paper, it was in fact included in the software platform. And that part can't be denied. And that's why it accepted this charge when it was offered to it.
Does anybody know why that line item was abandoned for the 4 line items that now exist? Does anybody know the answer to that?
Master Thompson, let me say this to you. I don't know if any of us will ever know the answer to that question, but I suspect that it was just easier since the person entering the information in the software knew that the 1060 line item was actually intended, and they could do that from memory. That it was just easier to do that than it was to go back into the background and do the housekeeping. I don't think that the previous treasurer was doing it for any reason that was sinister. I think it was just the easiest way to work through what was going to be a continuing entanglement. So unfortunately, when the new treasurer sat down behind the screen, she didn't have that same institutional knowledge about the glitch, and it came home to her in the form of a report.
And one thing that I would like to add, William, just in case, because once rhetoric gets pretty political, people get misled awful easily. What we're talking about here is a report showing a bunch of numbers and a line item. We're not actually talking about a cash balance. I believe Mr. Kirk was in receipt of the amount of money he was supposed to get. The correct amount of money was posted against our actual bank account. What we're really talking about is numbers in software that helps us to manage the budget. We're not talking about cash, correct?
Correct.
I hope everyone takes that with a grain of salt as well. Any further discussion?
One more request, Judge. Can I have a copy of that PDF that you have on the screen?
Sure.
You send that to me, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
And I appreciate you putting this on the agenda and appreciate the good explanation.
Thank you.
All right, I had a question.
Go ahead, Master Graham.
Okay, so if there's an error made, no matter whose fault it might be, is the only way to correct it through a motion in a fiscal court meeting?
That's a question for the county attorney.
Well, to answer the question, is that the only way? I think experience tells us that it can be done without permission, but to make sure that everybody's in the loop and that it's done in the light of day, yes, it needs to be corrected in fiscal court action.
So do we need to correct this?
Well, I think the payroll accounting or the payroll that's processed has already been corrected to make that claim now across the accounting on the 1060 line and not the 1230 line. So I think that part, and that's a finance department matter, not a treasurer matter. I think the finance officer, as explained to Judge Pace, has already corrected that part.
Right, so that's for all future things, but I'm just saying, because we have an item on here that there's no budget for, should we make a transfer or should we?
We did that already, Joe. We did that at the last meeting. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I see.
So
I see.
go over the account anymore? Are we gonna go to the 106 now that it's been changed on the document?
I believe that's the intention, correct, William?
Of course, you know, it might surprise people joining us in this meeting and perhaps members of the court, but this is actually the first time that I've seen this document in its corrected form. I'd seen it a number of times in its incorrect form, and I actually had it at our last meeting, but I didn't share it because the version I had didn't have all the personal information redacted. But this to me represents a correction going forward of how that payroll will be accounted for and how that claim will be paid.
So this was a one-time thing that was created because it was entered by mistake, because it was listed by mistake on the payroll report. Is that accurate?
No, I think that what should have happened is on the payroll report going back for, now Judge Pace may have had some earlier documents. The earliest document I looked at was for October 2019, and that's just because it happened to be laying around in another pile of stuff that was in the room.
That was early, I looked at as well.
Yeah, that 1230 line item was already being represented there, so it could have been changed anytime throughout, at least from October to now, and it wasn't changed. It was changed to, you know, to keep the accounting tracking for purposes of accountability from beginning to end, from claim to payment.
Gotcha, thank you.
Judge, one last question and make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. Is that when that line item no longer existed, it should have been deleted out of the account. And if it would have been deleted out of the account, then you couldn't have made a mistake or done anything to post it to that account number. Is that correct?
That's my understanding from speaking with Kathy Dillow, who is the software expert. Now, that's not to say that there may not have been some other reason that it was kept on there that I don't know about, but according to her, the appropriate way to use her software is to delete those line items for the new fiscal year. And then there's no possibility of an accidental post because it will tell you the line item doesn't exist.
And then one last question in regards to that. Did she say anything, or did you ask the question? I don't know you did. If we have other accounts out there that we may not be aware of that are not part of this budget that are still showing in the system that you could make, it could be posted to by mistake?
Let me interrupt you for just a second, because I think that goes into a matter that's not actually on the agenda, and that's about the accounting process generally, and not necessarily that April report.
Sorry.
Fair enough. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have one thing, Judge, I'd like to say. I think that was an excellent explanation of what happened on both counts, and I appreciate, obviously, you put a lot of time, effort, and work into it, you and your staff, and I appreciate you doing that. I think that hopefully this will clear up any issues that could have been created or questions that have been asked, probably politically motivated questions. And I think we're somewhat disingenuous, but I'm not talking about Magistrate Thompson, to be sure. I'm talking about after the meeting. I think it was a good question on Magistrate Thompson's part. I think it was a very good explanation as to what happened and why it happened and how it happened. And I want to thank you and your staff for doing the work to bring forth those explanations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'm going to try to grab my agenda back over here, if you'll bear with me a second. The next item we have is discussion of the April Treasurer's Report. Is there any discussion of the April Treasurer's Report? I thought you folks may be interested.
And it's actually, you really need to tie my questions not only to the treasurer's report, but to the transfer that's coming up here in just a bit. So you might want to look at both those documents in tandem as I ask these questions. And you need to remember that I didn't get this packet until sometime Tuesday as opposed to the normal Friday afternoon or Saturday. So I really didn't have enough time to completely investigate this. So I'm going to ask these questions and hopefully they can be answered, if not at least explained. On the account number 5025, 50-25-10-10 magistrate salaries and 50-25-2100, we're showing 109% for the magistrate salaries and 66.7% for the magistrate expense. Well, if you look back in the March treasurer's report, they were both 66%. Then if you look back to the April treasurer's report, the magistrate salaries were $43,000. So that means there was $26,000 posted to the magistrate salaries. If you take the salaries and the expense, you still have a difference of some $22,000 that was posted to this account that has no relation to it. If you assume, which is a bad thing to do, if you assume that the expenses were erroneously taken out of the expense account for those months and this month, you still have that difference of 22,000. So I don't know why we have this inaccuracy, if they've been posted wrong, and we certainly don't need to have the transfer. What we really need to do is go back and post these expenses to the right accounts and find out where this $22,000, $22,312.60 that was posted to the magistrate salaries, what account that actually belongs in. Because there's no way you can overspend these two accounts because they're the same each and every month for each and every month of the year. So there's no way that these numbers could be overdrawn on what the budget amount was. Do you understand me?
I believe I do understand you, Magistrate Blanton, and I think you're probably on the right track. I'm going to ask County Attorney Elkins if he can answer that question.
I can. So for people who have never encountered this software, I think Magistrate Blanton is really zeroing in and hitting close to home, using all the right ideas. So what I understand has happened, and I'm not an accountant, and I can tell you right now, if the treasurer gets out of that chair and you put me in it, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to tuck and run. It's way too complicated for me. But when the problems come up and all I have to do is look at the problem, it's easier for me to keep track of what's going on. In this case, expenses approved to be paid by the fiscal court were improperly classified in the form of human error against accounts that sounded like the right account, but turned out not to be the right account. We knew that. Again, that was something that we knew before this report closed on April the 30th. And the question to me was, should we do a transfer, or should we just reclassify these so that it corrects the balances on the budget and alleviates the trouble, and then print the report? And that wasn't something that was discussed in some sinister way. The difference between a transfer of cash from one line item to another, which should always be done by order, or the difference of correcting an incorrect classification seemed to be miles apart. But again, on my advice, I said to the treasurer, do not make any reclassification, leave it as is, and we'll take this up in the light of day at a fiscal court meeting. I hope everybody can appreciate that at all times it was apparent that these reports are, and rightfully so, heavily scrutinized, and that this would certainly be something that would come up for discussion, and we would just talk about it for what it is. So now that we are where we are, the reality is that the software issues checks related to these things, and we don't really even want to talk about how we might be able to disconnect the check from the classification. It's really just easier to come to the court, leave the record the way it is. It's a closed record for the month of April. Leave that record the way it is. There's nothing there that anybody wants to hide or anybody's concerned about. If people have questions, they'll get the truth. But now to correct the accounting ledger, again, not the cash in the bank and not the checking account, but to correct the accounting ledger, the proper thing to do would be to transfer money to bring that balance into correction.
Okay, I have but to follow up on that, I'm really not in favor of making one mistake to cover up another mistake. But still, this $22,000 has nothing to do with magistrate salaries or magistrate expense. So there's some other account that has an excess in it that should have been credited just $22,000. And since I didn't have time to thoroughly review this, I don't know what that account is, and who does?
Well, Master Blanton, if you'd asked me that question this morning, or you'd asked me yesterday or day before yesterday, I'd have got you an answer. But
I didn't have these documents till Tuesday morning, which was insufficient. If I had got these Friday, I would have done this Saturday and Sunday, and I would have called somebody Monday, but I didn't have time.
Well, sure, I appreciate that, but I'm just telling you that it's not that there can't be an answer given. It's just I don't have one in my pocket on that point. I do know what the process was. I just don't know exactly what the numbers were.
Well, again, my preference would be to correct the books, find where the $22,000 is, and move forward, because I'm not for covering up one mistake with another mistake.
Well, as a matter of law, I think that when faced with two harms, you have to pick the least of the two. And I think that the transfer order is the least of the two. And of course, the fiscal court is, and I suppose the treasurer, well positioned to ignore the advice that I'm given, but my advice would be to make the transfer.
To me, on all of this, just in general, I think that any concern you have, Magistrate Blanton, ought to be at least somewhat quelled by the fact that we're all on here talking about it.
Oh, I'm glad we are. Make no mistake about that. I just wish I had this information earlier, and I would have went to someone about it so we could have had an answer tonight, but I didn't have the information.
And I understand where you're coming from with that. I will tell you, and not to throw anybody under the bus, but my understanding is that the treasurer was waiting on a response from the jail in regards to a transfer item, and that's why she held off on getting some information to us, and that kind of delayed when you got it. And I apologize for that, but couldn't be helped. Any further discussion of I suppose, I don't know if we lingered into the transfer order there a little bit, but the actual agenda item is discussion of the treasurer's report. Any further discussion of that?
I have a question on the treasurer's report.
Okay.
The jail fund appears to be significantly in the negative. Can we explain that?
Well, the best explanation I can give you, unless somebody here has better information than me, is that the jail posted POs of an amount greater than what they had in their budget line items.
No, we overspent the revenue.
Are we no longer going to make transfers to cover that? Or are we doing it different now? I know it's never went in the negative before because we've always addressed it with the transfer. Are we doing that different now?
Well, I believe, following what county attorney has said earlier, that's the true balance in the account. The jail the current balance in the jail fund is $100,000 overdrawn, and that's being reflected honestly to the public. I mean, I know that there's other ways that could be taken care of. I know some of the people who've been on the court longer than me are familiar with them. I don't know if they want to speak to them, but I don't just for a second that it's accurate and honest. That's not what I'm saying one bit. Okay, so please understand that. Okay.
I just know we're bound by statute to keep those funds in the positive. And I understand that they're not an actual bank account, although it's getting ready to be because the fiscal court authorized it at the last meeting, I believe. And I'm assuming it's not that way yet, or it wouldn't be in the negative at all, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, correct.
But my point is, again, I don't dispute that it's honest and accurate. We're just bound by statute to not let that happen. And it's actually, I don't want to put us in a position to get fined or dinged by the state. Once again, I'm just trying to keep it right. And I just wonder why we've moved away from the practice of transferring the money in to make sure the fund doesn't go in the negative.
Magistrate Thompson, just to answer or respond to a statement there that you just made about that the jail fund has never gone negative. And you are correct in that it hasn't gone negative when the fiscal courts received these reports. Actually, since everything came to light on how things were being done, I went back and researched, and actually in May of 2016, the prior treasurer had issued claims against the Treasury that made the jail fund go negative $38,337.57. You know, the former administration and the former treasurer should have produced to the fiscal court the May financial report showing the jail, fund negative. Instead of being transparent to the fiscal court, what they did was they submitted a financial report that was actually signed and dated on June 2nd that had a $39,000 transfer that the fiscal court had never approved. And because of that, the report that we saw shows the fund as being positive. So what that did was eluded transparency to the fiscal court, but not only that, but also eluded transparency to the state auditor's office. So, I commend the judge and them for showing these reports and not using the same accounting practices that have had in the past. So I appreciate the treasurer in that, but I just wanted to say that the jail funds have gone negative. It's just because things have happened that shouldn't have been happening is why we've never seen them on a report before.
Just so you're talking about a retroactive transfer, correct?
That is correct. And see, the transfer didn't even come to the court until after the June 2nd, which these official documents were signed and sent to the DLG.
What month of year was that, Daniel?
That was in May of 2016.
Okay, so just so we're on the same page, I'm talking about since I have been on the fiscal court.
I understand that, but I'm just telling you.
Let me talk. I'm not seeing the jail balance go in the negative on a treasurer's report that I have received. It has always been my understanding that we have made transfers to prevent that from happening, which seems like good practice to me because we're bound by statute to keep it in the positive. That's all that I'm saying. I don't know what happened back in May 2016. I'm not going to pretend to know what happened back in May 2016, and you may very well be spot on. I'm not doubting you 1 second. I hope that we haven't made a transfer since I've been on this court that wasn't correct, but I do know that the previous court made retro transfers, and I do know that there's a differing of opinions there as to whether that can be done or not. And I'm not an expert. I can't answer that question. I was just trying to figure out if we have jail fund in the negative.
Judge.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Hold on, guys. Magistrate Davis is requesting an opportunity to talk, and I don't believe he's spoken yet, so let's let him speak.
If I may, thank you, Judge. Well, first of all, Judge, I appreciate the treasurer's effort putting this reconciliation and this monthly report together, county attorney's assistance in doing that. I'm always concerned, Judge. I will be concerned anytime I see a negative balance on any account or line item, and particularly if it's in six figures. And just so the public knows, this is $101,582.54 in negative balance in the jail fund. I would be even more concerned, though, Judge, if we fail to accurately reflect for the month that an account is in the negative. If it is in the negative, Judge, then I take the position we have to reflect that. I'd hate for us to get dinged on an audit, or in a worst case scenario to be fined or penalized in some way by DLG or the auditors, either one. But I think that we certainly don't want to wade back into potentially trying to make some retroactive transfer, which we know is not appropriate. And secondly, Judge, to this negative balance, it may be a discussion that bleeds in over into the transfer that we're going to be considering for the jail. But I think Magistrate Elkins made the point a few months ago about the jail situation that we needed a true budget amendment. And we were presented in that meeting with it looked like a highlighted spreadsheet. It was not, and County Attorney Elkins, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand there is an actual DLG form that counties are directed to use in the event that they want to amend a budget. We didn't do that. I don't know how much of this we can or should remedy, Judge, with transfers, but, and I regret that this jail balance is negative, but clearly, I mean, the spending is such that I don't know that we really had any choice. I mean, we've got a transfer I know to consider in a few minutes. But as regrettable as showing a negative balance is, if that is the most accurate way to reflect the current state in a department's budget or the line item, then looks like to me that's how it has to be addressed. And I know the previous practice seemed to be institutional practice to avoid showing a negative balance almost at any cost. And I can understand why one would be so reticent to show that negative balance. There are consequences for that. There's also consequences for not being transparent with auditors and with the public. And the public needs to know the state of affairs in these various budgets. And I think this is the best way to do it. So that's all I had to add, Judge.
Can I add one more thing, Judge?
Sure.
I was just going to say, I think that this kind of shows that the accounting practices that have been happening really need to change. From the aspect of it is we've always been reactive as opposed to proactive. And so, and this is, before your time, even back on the previous fiscal court, and Robert can attest to this, is what happens is when, a department head or a constitutional officer or what have you should never actually agree to pay a bill and submit an invoice to an account that they don't have allocated for payment. Because at that point, we shouldn't pay it, versus they go ahead and agree to it and it comes before us, and then we have to contemplate whether or not we want to transfer it. Well, you never have the opportunity to contemplate it because the money's already been spent and we have to free up money to transfer it to that line item. So I think, something maybe we can address in our admin code, because I know that's coming up here in June. I think that we can do that or what have you. But I just think that moving forward, they should never agree to pay for anything before they submit a PO on a line item that's already allocated. If they need to spend something, they need to come to the fiscal court for prior approval to get money allocated to that account. So then that way it's available at the time that they submit that PO to the finance department.
Yeah, we'll take that under consideration.
Judge, if I might, should we send someone, or should we send some sort of correspondence to the jail and let them know that they've overspent and that they need to be more careful not to do that in the future, or do we just keep going negative balances? And
Judge, I hate like anything to interrupt. It's a very important conversation, but I don't think that working on our our purchase procedures and so forth is on the agenda tonight. So I apologize, Mayor Chanel.
I'll save my question for the next meeting. Thank you, County Attorney Elton.
Any further discussion of the treasurer's report?
Judge, one request.
Sure.
Could you reach out and get a DLG opinion on this subject and provide it to us as to whether we should let this go in the negative or whether there's a better practice to address it?
I will ask the county attorney to formulate a question and we'll see where we can take it.
Let me respond to that for a minute. I'm not opposed to anybody formulating questions and asking DLG, but at the end of the day, I'm supposed to offer the legal advice to this body, and you're free to set it aside. But I can't give you what I think is maybe somebody else's opinion secondary to mine, because in my opinion, that's not the best advice. So it's not that I know everything, and I'm certainly not right all the time. And I shouldn't have it my way all the time, because I'm not always right. But I can't provide a second opinion to you that's different than mine, because in my opinion, mine's the best, or I wouldn't offer it to you. It may be the worst, but it's the best I could come up with. So I encourage people to look to other sources for information, but you can't get a second opinion out of me that's based on what somebody else thinks or not. First of all, the DLG folks aren't lawyers, and they can't represent this body. So they do a great job. They're important people, and I want people to ask them but I can't offer you their opinion as my own.
So let me ask you this, County Attorney, are you okay with us violating the statute and having that fund in a negative balance?
Well, would you tell me which statute it is so that I can consider that?
68,300.
It's what?
68,300.
68,300? You know, if you don't mind circling back to that in a moment as you continue your work without me, I'll look at that quickly and I'll
Yeah.
give you my thoughts.
No problem with that whatsoever.
Well, I suppose we need to keep discussion going in the interim.
I think Magistrate Thompson, I think there may be a confusion, but I think you're right, Magistrate Thompson. I mean, we're gonna have to transfer cash from the general fund to bring that count back to a positive.
I agree.
And I think that's what you're asking, correct?
Yeah, we're not doing it. I mean, we're not, either we got to stop spending or we have to transfer cash in, one of the two. And, you know, I'm not opposed to I'm not gonna get into that because County Attorney didn't want us to, but we'll talk about it.
I got you. I follow you. But
Any further discussion of the treasurer's report? Anything related to the treasurer's report?
I just want to make sure we can come back to it, Judge, when he's ready.
That was why I was kind of trying to
And I appreciate
bide
it.
time.
I think you'll still be able to hear me. And I think probably the best practice would be for me just to read it verbatim. That way we'd all hear it at the same time. I don't necessarily know just off the cuff what it says, and I'll just read it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So 68,300 says any appropriation made or claim allowed by the fiscal court in excess of any budget fund and any warrant or contract not within the budget appropriation shall be void. No member of the fiscal court shall vote for any such illegal appropriation or claim. The county treasurer shall be liable on his official bond for the amount of any county warrant willfully or negligently signed or countersigned by him in excess of the budget fund out of which the warrant is payable. And so to that, I would say, having just seen that and had only seconds to consider it, this is not a question of whether or not the expense is within the budget fund. It's within that budget fund. It's not an overdraw of the fund or the appropriation. It's what's happened is the jail spending has outrun their cash revenue. And so the cash is still in the bank to pay the claims, but it's going to require a transfer from the general fund to bring that cash balance on the ledger, within correction. So it's not that the fund has been exceeded. You all set the fund when you approved the budget back last year. It's just that the cash receipts of the jail have been outrun by the spending.
So in your opinion, we're not in violation of that statute?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
I will say this, Magistrate Thompson, and I am by no way, shape, or form giving legal advice. I pledge not to do that when I took this office. But I can say just from life experience that oftentimes, perhaps you've spoken with an attorney, I don't know if you have or not, but you'll find quite often two attorneys have different opinions on how to interpret KRS. That's not unusual at all.
That's the first attorney I've asked the question to. So.
Okay. Any further discussion of the treasurer's report? Seeing none. Move on to the next item. And that is item number 12, consider approval of the transfers. Do I have a motion? Y'all hear me?
Are you doing both of them at the same time? I've got two different ones.
That's two different orders, Judge.
But which one
Oh,
are we
that's-
doing?
That's
Are we
a
doing them
different.
together?
William,
I'm sorry?
we have two different transfer orders. Now, they're not represented on the agenda as 12A and 12B as we did the last time this occurred. I know the agenda has already been approved, so the question I have is how do we represent those transfer orders for the purpose of the meeting?
Let me run down my agenda here and see what it actually says. I have it here close by. I
Okay.
got a lot of things close by. Well, the agenda fairly puts people interested in knowing on notice that the fiscal court is going to consider approval of the transfers in the plural. So I think that's sufficient notice that that be done today. I think you can consider all transfers that you have in your hands.
Okay, so since they're two separate orders, should I separate them by vote?
Well, I think the intention there was to try to set apart the requests that were made by the detention center, and then the ones that were necessary to the bills list. So I think it's they are separate transfers, and each item within there, naturally speaking, is a transfer.
Okay. Well, do I have a motion to approve the transfers represented in the first order in your packet, which starts off with ADF funds?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Judge, in that this transfer has those magistrate expenses and salaries that's been misappropriated or that's probably not the right term, but mistakenly credited to this, debit credited to this account, I'm going to vote no.
Judge, one question.
I can't hear you, Daniel. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, is this the or is this the transfer order that the jail has requested, or is this the one that the treasurer had requested?
This is not the jail's request. This is the one to pay the other bills.
Yeah, this is the first one, the one that the treasurer.
I don't know if you have, Judge, but I had sent an email to the jailer, and it was at 2 o'clock this afternoon, so he may not have seen it and so forth, because I was late digging into this. Is in regards to the cash, I kind of asked him how much cash that he was going to need to basically run through the end of June 30th of fiscal year. And I haven't got any response, and kind of see what his contingency plan was as far as reducing expenses. Do you have you had any communication in regards to that as far as reducing expenses, or how much cash they're going to need until the end of the year? Because ultimately we do need to correct this balance of $100 and some $1,000. Do you have any idea?
No, not at the moment. I did speak with the Chief Deputy and Magistrate Thompson on Monday, but that didn't come up in the conversation. I did send an email to the jailer in that regard, but I haven't received a response yet. I do believe that the jail has been in contact with the treasurer in regards to the balance, so there may be something in the works, but I haven't heard back yet, or perhaps an email or something came in that I haven't seen. That's all I can tell you.
And we, it's kind of hard. I know it's hard with these virtual meetings and asking questions and so forth, but you know, I know that our revenue is going to continue to drop. I know our inmate count has dropped significantly. You know, has the jail or anything explored anything with the number of employees and so forth, and maybe looking at other options? Because I mean, with the amount that we're negative now, I think we're going to be close to almost $1 million out of the, you know, as a transfer out that's over budget.
Well, you're kind of putting me in a similar situation to when I get asked questions about the treasury software. I'm not the treasurer, nor am I the jailer. But I believe that the jail has cut back on hours, but not on employees. I think that's right. I think they may have had a few people resign, but my understanding was they hadn't actually, you know, laid anybody off.
Judge, would it be possible to get them on for this discussion?
I don't know that it would be for this particular discussion. That's a question for the development district.
Judge, I don't know if they're attendee. If they're an attendee, I can move them into the link.
if you think you can accomplish that without throwing our meeting into disarray, I'm willing to give it a shot.
That's a very good question that I would like to have answered as well, and I think that it would be important to involve them in that, and I'd like to take the time to do it if it's possible.
Judge, are they one of the people that are listed in the attendees?
No, I have no idea. I think I should probably consult the county attorney first, just in regards to this being a special meeting. Is it kosher, for lack of a better word, for us to allow a new participant into the meeting?
Well, surely, I think it's like them walking into the room late, but just in time. If we can get them on here, I think they should certainly have an opportunity to support the transfers that they need to operate.
Okay. So does anybody know how to identify who the development district should let in the room?
I would say Chief.
I don't see anyone on the attendee list that would fit that description. There's no jailer.
If it happens during the course of your meeting that somebody becomes available, I think because it's on your agenda, you could circle back to that, but I recognize that your orders are in front of you. So.
Okay. Was there anything else about the orders people would like to discuss in the meantime?
I have some concern just because these are the original transfer. I know back in January when Magistrate Elkins had kind of said that, revenue was not coming in the way it was and expenses were exceeding revenue, that you yourself and the former treasurer and the jailer had kind of met, and we had moved, I think it was $156,000 out of expenses that they were going to control, and we put into a contingency fund so we wouldn't have to use. And we're transferring back into some of those same accounts that we transferred out of in the first place. So we haven't controlled the expenses from that, from that side of it. So I'm just trying to figure out what's going on before, I vote on these. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. But I mean, ultimately, we've got to pay some of these bills as well.
My concern is that this transfer doesn't get the jail fund back in the positive side.
I don't know what our options are. I don't know the dates of the POs and the bills associated with the transfers, or I would suggest you could always table it, but obviously that could potentially make the bills late. So I don't know what to tell you.
Well, how about we do this? If anybody's got that, the transfer, I'm looking for it here, the transfer out account number handy.
What are you looking for, Daniel?
The transfer out, I think it's 01 or 09. The transfer out from the general fund and then transfer into the jail fund.
Daniel, I don't know if it's the information you're looking for or not, but I just received a text message from Janet. Of course, she's HR and personnel managing those paperwork. She said she could probably come over here and describe to you any issues that there are with personnel if you'd like her to come participate. She'd just be walking across the building.
Yeah, if she wants to, sure.
She's right here beside me, so.
Oh, okay. That'll work too.
Right, because I'm in your office.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hey, Daniel, are you just wanting to know about the personnel, the cuts in personnel at the jail?
I was just wondering, I mean, I don't know. I mean, are we at the same staff level? I think we had about 44.
They have one full-time person that is completely laid off, that they don't really anticipate a recall. They have one full-time person that is on medical leave. And the majority of the personnel have either had 8 to 16 hours cut from their weekly work. So they have cut mostly by just reducing hours.
Reducing hours.
I don't know how that
I
turns
have
out.
a related question. How does that work with FICA and some of the other, I guess, bills associated with employment? What, is there an hour limitation on that, Janet, that you're aware of?
No, not that I'm aware of. You know, I'm sure part-time status is different than a full-time status, but I don't know the numbers and how much that would be. You know, the real significance is if you lay someone off full-time, you no longer have to carry their employee benefit, their insurance. You reduce their hours and they're still paying for it. So, you know, those are some numbers that you might want to adjust. But again, we have that one full-time layoff and that one full-time leave.
Okay. Did that happen fairly recently?
Well, it kind of progressed over time. First, it was just cutting hours, and then it was just laying people off as they could, and when they could still support what they needed to do.
Okay.
Because I was just looking at an average inmate, just of county inmates, not the state. And I know we've dropped significantly. And I know we keep another state for the revenue and stuff, but I mean, we've almost got the same number of employees versus just county inmates. And just wondered if that had been evaluated and what was going to happen, you know, moving forward, especially towards the end of the budget, because it doesn't look like this issue is going to resolve itself anytime soon.
Problem that they have over there is that they are still having inmates on essentially 4 floors. So they have to keep at least 2 deputies on each floor. So it's very difficult for them to minimize their staff. I can speak to, because Chief Crockett shared it with myself and the judge on Monday, that they've cut all the employees back to 64 hours per pay period as opposed to 80.
Yeah, that's what I was under the impression of.
I'm not aware of any layoffs at all, but I think it's very difficult for them to decrease their staff because of the layout of the jail, and the CDC guidelines to keep the inmates spread out doesn't allow them to remove a floor from the program. And there's also that staff analysis out there that says that we should have a lot more deputies than we do have for the amount of inmates that we have. So I think that poses a problem as well.
But, you know, one thing that maybe need to consider, and I was hoping to have some exchange back and forth with him. I know it was late in the day. I'm not faulting him at all, but, you know, one thing is that, you know, instead of housing some of these inmates from other counties and so forth, it would really decrease the amount of inmates that we have that are just solely our responsibility, you know, because we don't have to take the state inmates. We don't have to take that. And I know it generates revenue, but if we have to continually keep that additional employees for those, and it's costing us more than what we're receiving, that's just something that needs to be evaluated.
I can't answer that question. Like I said, I'd love to have a member of them on here with us to discuss this, and I prefer it before the transfer vote, because I still think we have to address this cash fund or the fund balance.
And I would like, and I agree with you, Magistrate Thompson, and I'd like to offer up an amendment to the transfer, Judge, if that's appropriate.
Sure, I think it would be. Who made the motion in the second? Is it friendly or is it a straight amendment?
I was going to just make a straight amendment. I think everybody will consider.
We haven't got to this transfer yet. We're considering the first transfer to pay the bills, I understood.
Yeah, my
I
motion,
thought that's what
Judge,
we were
and I
talking
think,
about.
We're only
I
on
think
the
I
first
made the
transfer to pay the
motion.
bills. We haven't got the second one.
Mhm.
Davis and Graham made the
Okay,
two motions.
Magistrate Davis made the motion. It was seconded by
And
Magistrate
I
Graham.
may-
We're currently in discussion. And
Judge,
this
I'm
is
sorry,
the
I'm-
first group of transfers. Go ahead.
I may stand corrected. The motion that I made was to the order with respect to the order that starts ADF funds $10,000
Exactly, you're exactly
have
right.
that.
We haven't got to the jail transfer yet.
Right.
Well, it's in there, Magistrate Blanton. There is a transfer for the jail in there as well.
But the judge called for the first one. It started with ADF ones. He didn't call for the second one yet.
No, Robert, what he's saying is if you look at the second page of the first order, there are some jail transfers on it.
Okay, but I was saying you're talking about the complete transfer for the jail.
No,
We're not talking
that'd be
about
the
that
second.
one yet.
You're
We're
talking about.
Contingent appropriation, 34,975 on the
Okay.
second page.
Okay, you're not talking about the second transfer then. Okay,
Mhm. Going into
Okay,
5
then.
other line items.
Yeah.
okay.
So am I
Go
okay
ahead.
to make an amendment? What I'd propose in the amendment, Judge, is to take out from the general fund cash balance 01490-000, $102,000, and move that to account 034910-00. And that brings the balance to flush on the financial report. You agree with that, Magistrate Thompson?
I'm not saying I disagree with it, but I think the treasurer indicated to the jail staff that the fund balance was actually going to be, and I think it's after we pay today's bills, 190,000 over. So I don't know that would correct our problem. I'm not saying that I'm right, but that's my
Well,
understanding.
Okay, for that being, why don't we just go ahead and change that to 200,000?
I think that would definitely cover it.
And then,
Let me interrupt you just a minute. I think that you're talking about, as this has been discussed a little bit through the week, we've been kind of talking about these transfer orders in the form of 1 of 3 being the one that's before the court now, the ADF first line order, pay the bills, and 2 of 3 would be the order as requested by the jail. And I think what you're talking about would relate to 3 of 3, which was never brought before the court because no answer was gained from the detention center about what amount of spending versus what amount of cash they were going to need to finish out the year. So I don't think that's before the court.
I may be missing what you're saying, William. Are you saying we can't consider that amendment?
I'm saying there was no proposal this court by way of agenda or written order or otherwise to cure the $101,000 cash imbalance on the ledger. The orders are about paying the bills on the first one that Magistrate Davis made his move about. And then there's a potential second one that's in your hands that the jail requested. But nobody put before this court on the agenda or otherwise what to do about the $101,000 cash imbalance. That was as I understood it, we needed information from the jail since it was represented all to the in the discussions that I had with the treasurer that we didn't have any idea what his expenses would be finishing out the year, nor did we have any idea what his revenue would be. So to take a wild guess, $200,000 swing in tax dollars, and it's not even before the court, I think is probably maybe just getting a little off track. I think the 2 orders that are before you could properly be considered.
I'll respect that.
Well,
Thank you.
you're our legal representative here, so I'll tell you, I would have thought we could have done it, but I'll also accept that you've researched it more than me and I can be wrong. So I guess we'll just continue to consider the order as it was offered. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the first transfers starting on the order with ADF funds at the top, please respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
I think that's Magistrate Elkins and Blanton are nay.
No, I was an aye.
Oh, you were?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Magistrate
6 to
Thompson
1.
and Blanton. Okay. Now, the second of the transfers, this one is the one, I believe, relating solely to the jail as requested by the jail. If I'm incorrect on that, somebody feel free to correct me. It starts off with 035-101-1030 deputies and matrons, $56,000, $594.51. Is there a motion to approve that transfer?
Just to clarify for the public,
Anyone?
Judge, on this proposed order,
I've lost Magistrate Davis. Okay.
It
Magistrate
would
Davis,
appear that
can you
he's
speak?
got a muted mic.
Okay.
Just to be clear, and I'm sure everybody knows, because it's a video teleconference, we should conduct no discussion or business without him till he's restored.
can you hear the judge? Hello, Judge?
Yes.
I can hear you,
I
Chris.
hear
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry about that.
So is there a motion in regards to this transfer order? Okay, seeing none, the order fails for lack of motion. Now move on to item 13, consider the bills list.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, discussion of the bills list.
One question, Judge, and I think I know the answer, but I want to be clear. We do have enough money in the jail fund or to pay the bills, correct? As presented.
I believe unless I've interpreted something incorrectly, I believe we have enough after the transfers to pay the bills. Now, the second transfer, I'm not sure if any of our current bills are represented on that transfer. I'd have to review it real quick for you.
Well, I think your question, Greg, is about the actual fund. On the paper fund, yes, it is negative because we didn't hear back from, or judge didn't hear back from the judge on how much cash they needed to finish out the year to transfer that amount of cash. But because the account is all into one account to actually pay those bills, there is cash. But as far as line items on these different accounts, I'm not sure if there's adequate balance for every one of the jail bills.
Certainly, we have enough money in the general fund account, if that's what you're asking.
It is, Judge, that's question one. Question two then is, as we did not pass the second set of transfers, are there bills in that transfer that did not pass that are on this bills list that would put us into negative balances if we pay these bills? When I say negative balances, I mean negative balances on specific line items, not negative bank balance.
I would imagine that's a possibility, Magistrate Elk. You could take the bills list.
I would offer maybe to amend to pay any bills that don't put us in a negative balance per line item.
So you just amend to pay the bills, and that if there are any bills that when they go to pay that are in a negative balance, to hold those bills until the next meeting so we can hear from the jailer on how much money they need and just do it all in one big transfer? Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. That would be my amendment that I would offer, yes.
I'll second that.
County Attorney Elkins, is that too vague of an amendment for us to move forward on, or is that something we can reference the entire bills list after the fact in order to do what Magistrate Elkins is suggesting?
I guess I'm the lucky one to draw that question. So my belief is that the most correct business that the court could conduct would only be to pay bills on the bills list that have not been applied to a line item that would create a negative free balance on the accounting ledger. When faced with, as I suggested before, competing harms, I think you're required in some instances, payroll being one of them, not to let the employee that you owe money to in arrears for service performed down. And you may, in fact, have to charge against a line item creating a negative balance while maintaining an actual positive checking account balance. So I think while that sounded fairly creative to me, I think it was articulated in a way that the members of the court could understand that in a general way, the treasurer is being directed to pay these bills for which there are sufficient free balances. I think that's
any others she can, okay, all right. So we have a motion made by
And although,
Magistrate Elkins. Speak again, Greg.
no, that's fine, Judge, go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say there was a motion made by Magistrate Elkins to approve the bills list, but only to approve those bills which are represented by a positive free balance in an amount that would cover said bills and checks, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And that's been seconded. I missed who seconded it. I think it was Daniel, but I don't know.
That is correct.
It was
Did you
Daniel.
second that, Magistrate Constantopoulos? Okay. All right. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right. Well, this is on the motion to amend. So all those in favor of Greg's amendment to the bills list, respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay, that the amendment to the original motion passes. Now we
It
vote
was my no
on
just now.
the motion. I think that was Magistrate Thompson. Now we vote on the motion to approve the bills list as amended in total. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
I think the no was Magistrate Thompson.
Okay.
Okay,
The first one was made by David. Who seconded that one? Water freezing up on my end, so I can't see.
are you talking about the original motion or the amendment?
No, the original. Davis made the motion, but who seconded?
The original motion was the second. Was that you as well, Daniel?
Judge,
Or did
Judge,
we-
let me interrupt you just a second, if you would. What actually happened was you couldn't get a motion until Greg amended it. So I think his
Was that correct?
I don't have anybody written down.
Yeah, it did, yeah,
Yeah.
he's right. He did get a second.
Okay.
So county attorney
So do-
was his, go ahead.
So do we need to change the motions at all, or can we just do as amended by Magistrate Elkins?
I think and Magistrate Elkins should articulate this if I get it wrong. I understood the motion to be to amend the transfer order such that only the payment of the bills on the bills list where there was sufficient free balance existed. So if he could amend the motion, then he was moving to pass it, to approve the transfer. If he could amend the transfer with that qualification, that was his motion.
Okay. I think the easiest and cleanest way then would be for me to accept that as a friendly amendment. Is that correct?
Well, probably the cleanest way would be to determine whether or not Magistrate Elkins' motion was to move that for approval of the transfer order before the court, with the one qualification that he was only moving for approval on those bills that could be paid against free balances without creating a negativity.
Gotcha.
When-
That was certainly my understanding.
Judge, just
when considering the bills list, I did move to amend the bills list to I guess eliminate any bills that would put us in a negative balance per any line item. So I was motioning to amend the bills list rather than a transfer order.
That's what I thought.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You didn't mention transfer order. You mentioned
right,
bills.
and Judge,
Yeah.
I think I just, for the record, I think I did make, unless I was cut off, I think I did make the motion to approve the bills list.
You did.
I don't recall who seconded that. It may not have been seconded. But I did make a
Okay.
motion to approve the bills list. But if it was seconded, I'll gladly accept his amendment as a friendly amendment, Magistrate Elkins.
Okay.
Was it seconded, Madam Clerk?
No,
She said no.
Okay, I will second that, Madam Clerk.
thank you.
I think we should probably vote again.
Judge, can I
So
say one
Magistrate
thing?
Davis, sure thing.
I just want to point out that the purpose of my no vote is because the fund balance is in the negative, and I'm not comfortable approving the bills with the fund balance remaining in the negative. Just want to clear that up.
Fair enough. So a motion has been made by Magistrate Davis to approve the bills list. That was seconded by Magistrate Constantopoulos, correct? And he accepted a friendly amendment from Magistrate Elkins regarding that no bills should be applied that would create a negative balance. Assuming I'm right on all that, let's have a vote. All those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Now to the second page of your agenda. Item number 14, consider approval of an order to authorize the payment of $6,536.10 to compensate the Clark County Clerk's claim for calculation of motor vehicle and boat bills for 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been a motion made and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 15, consider approval of a resolution to execute a contract between the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Department of Rural and Municipal Aid, and Clark County Fiscal Court for the County Road Aid Cooperative Program for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the agreement.
Second.
A motion was made by Magistrate Planton, seconded by Magistrate Davis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 16, consider approval of an order to appoint Magistrate Chris Davis, Magistrate Greg Elkins, and Judge Executive Pace to the Clark County Constables Association Board of Directors. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have some, Judge.
Sure thing.
County Attorney,
Yes, sir.
I would like your opinion on this. I have a few questions for you. If you could help me along, please.
Okay.
The Clark County Constables Association, is it a private nonprofit LLC in Kentucky?
I could certainly determine whether or not that was the case, but as I sit here right now, I don't know the answer.
Okay. According to the Kentucky Secretary of State website, it is. I'll let you decide whether you want to take my word for that or not, but can we assume for a second that it is when I ask you these questions?
Sure.
All right. They are governed by their operating agreement, correct?
You know, I think that's a great question. You know, and I don't know, I'm assuming as you asked me to, so I don't know that I don't know that it's not correct. I don't know it is correct. I'm assuming because you asked me to that they were you say they were a LLC, or what was you said that they
They
were?
are a nonprofit LLC with the Secretary of State.
I'll assume that fact, and then the question is, you had a question.
My concern is, and you tell me where I go wrong here, can we as a government body appoint members of our government body to their board of directors, which I believe that they can have? Let's just assume for a second that they can. Can we appoint public members to their board of directors when we're not a member of their LLC and we don't have any established authority with their association?
Well, I think there are two things at work here. And if I get off track, then I'm not doing it intentionally. And somewhere in there's the answer. So I think that the ordinance creates a board or a committee. I don't have it in front of me, so I don't remember exactly what it says. That some of the appointments are to be made by the judge executive, and then the Constable Association will have some of its membership represented there. And I think whether you consider it to be above that or below that in terms of their organizational structure, they probably also have the board that you're speaking of, a board of directors maybe that's represented within their business entity descriptions on their, on their filing with the Secretary of State that is controlled only by them and not subject to the influence of the court.
And I'm not sure what their operating agreement is or how they're lined out. I've requested those documents multiple times and have not received them from the Constable Association, so I can't answer those questions either. But just for the record, my concern here is that we're appointing members of our governing body to that so-called board of directors when we may not even be authorized to do so. And that concerns me, and I'm afraid that it opens us up to liability.
It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, County Attorney Elkins, I believe you were involved at least in reviewing the documents in regards to the ordinance and the Constable Association. To me, are these not two distinct, different bodies that just simply have similar names?
I think that is at least a working description of what's being discussed. I think, as I said, I think there's their board of directors that is described within their legal filings with the Secretary of State, and then there's the one that is created by the ordinance, whether it be above that one or below that one in terms of their organizational structure that requires the judge executive to appoint members for the purpose of policing their conduct. To give a body of oversight to the work that they may do in the community.
I have nothing
Based
further.
on Thanks, Magistrate Thompson. Based on that, County Attorney Elkins, do you think we're safe to move forward with this vote today? Or is there any notion in your mind that we need to review any further documents?
I think that Magistrate Thompson's question is a good question. And I think he's probably right on track that they have a board of directors that is formed within their legal entity. But I think the one we're talking about is one created by ordinance. And on that board of directors, I think it'd be fair for you to take up the business as it is on the agenda for the court.
Judge, I would move the table just so we can get that clarified.
There's a motion made to table. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay, a motion and second to table this particular issue. Discussion of the motion to table.
I just think it was already clarified that it was separated from what's being reported to the Kentucky Secretary of State.
County Attorney Elkins, would it be possible for us to, instead of tabling the motion, would it be possible for us to amend it just to insert something clarifying that this is the board of directors referred to in Clark County's ordinances and not the one registered privately with the Secretary of State as an LLC?
Judge, that's not what this order says. This says the Clark County Constable Association Board of Directors. So I think we need to clarify it before we can vote on it.
That's what he's trying to do, is clarify.
Yeah, I just thought we could amend the actual document to reflect that, and that might clean things up if our legal advisor thinks that's appropriate. If not, we can address it another way.
I don't really think that there's any, I don't think that there should be any real question about whether we're talking about two distinct bodies. The fiscal court clearly has no interest in. That's a private entity, be it nonprofit or profit, not subject to controls by the fiscal court. That one's not before the court. The question here is, with regard to the ordinance, are you going to appoint people to that Clark County Constable Association Board of Directors that's named there? I don't know that anybody in the panel, and perhaps some do, but I don't know that anybody in the panel even knows if there's some other board of directors for the Constable Association. Not one that I'm aware of, not one that I considered in the draft of the ordinance or the proposed order here.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded to table this particular order. Any further discussion on the motion to table?
Yeah, I would say this. I think it's very clear that no need to table it, and I'm not going to support that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of tabling this motion respond by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay.
No.
Nay.
Okay,
And
okay, we'll now go back.
Oh, okay, Daniel. No. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Not table.
That's not table it, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Now going back to the original motion, who made the original motion, Michelle?
Daniel was the first and never did hear the second one.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Motion was made by Magistrate Constantopoulos, seconded by Magistrate Davis. Magistrate Constantopoulos, might I ask that we insert a whereas, let's make it whereas in between the current 3 and 4, so a new whereas number 4 that says, whereas this appointment refers to Clark County ordinance and specifically does not refer to the board of directors of the LLC.
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment. Yes.
Okay. So the motion has been made and amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries.
Is that Blanton only that said no?
And Thompson. Item number 17 on your agenda. We're getting there, folks. Consider approval of an order for the county clerk to use the fiscal courtroom from June 1st to June 30th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
Is this during regular business hours?
Yes, it is. Do you all want me to clarify that?
Yeah, if you would, Michelle,
Could
explain
you
it
please?
quick, I'd appreciate it.
So, as you know, we're in a pandemic and the elections have to be held totally different than we've ever held them before. Therefore, this is for my absentee voting. They do not want to have the people in here in case we get COVID-19, that we can't have an election. So State Board of Elections has told us that we cannot have the absentee in our office. We have to have it to a different location. It has to be a secure location, meaning no one has the key but me. The ballots will be laid in there 24/7. The voting machine will be in there, which is why you can't let anybody else in the room. There is no other place in this courthouse that has heat and air, telephone, Wi-Fi, bathroom accessibility. So that's the room I came up with, unless you all want to bring a building that can accommodate this for 1 month.
How many voting machines are you gonna have in this room?
Well, this is your absentee voting. We're going to have 2. This is not for election day. It's
2
for
machines.
absentee voting only.
Does
Yes,
it
but
have
you're
to
gonna
be
have
in the
4
same
poll-
room or?
Well, you've got
Does the-
4
does the-
pollers.
I understand. Do both machines have to be in the same room or could they be in separate rooms?
They can be in separate rooms. But you're going to have your 4 poll workers that are going to be working here, paid for by the State Board of Elections. Who are going to be working, they're on computers and going to be mailing out all these ballots, which are going to be set up in the room. I don't think you all want us to get the corona and have to shut down and have no election in Clark County.
Michelle, one quick question on the absentee ballot. Can you clarify how that's going to work? I'm hearing different things, and while we're talking about this subject, because this help plays into where I'm going with this. But on absentee ballot, if they want to come in and absentee ballot in person,
They have to make an appointment.
they have to make an appointment, and so they schedule an appointment.
Yes.
Is it possible for, because I mean, I can only speak for myself. I would like to start meeting in person, because we have a lot of people that want to be able to make comments and so forth. Is there a way that on that, because you will be present, is there not a way that we can still have a court meeting in the morning of that one meeting, and then on that Thursday, that night meeting, and that be the only times that is there, but you would also be present, during that time? And I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Right, but you're going to have all your ballots and all the 6 things that go with the ballot laid out on all these tables and 2 computers in there. So we would have to take everything out.
When you say absentee ballots, Michelle, does that include the mail-in ballots? Are those considered absentee?
That's what a lot of this is as well. The people that the State Board of Elections is going to hire will be sending all these ballots out for us, which we have to train.
Would there be, go ahead.
The only other place, if you all want to find a place off-site to do this, but literally we're going to have to pack up the whole election department and move them out there as well. And there again, this is an election. People's votes matter here, and the taxpayers should be able to use that room.
What about that? What about obviously maybe we wouldn't be able to put all the people or both machines, but what about the conference room downstairs, if you were to take the table and chairs out, and then the room upstairs across from the treasurer's office, which I understand may still be empty.
It is not,
Up on-
yeah, it is not secure.
You mean it doesn't have a lock on it, or?
I don't know, but we're not gonna lay ballots just laying there for anybody to be able to get in there and get them out.
Well, I'm not suggesting it be left unlocked. I'm asking, can it be locked?
Who all has a key to that room?
Please?
Who all has a key to that room?
Well, I don't know, but the lock could be changed. I mean, that's not, you're not reinventing the wheel. I mean, it's,
Okay.
I mean, not to be flip, but Judge, you know, we're having to do 3-4 Zoom meetings now. And, you know, I'm getting, as Magistrate Constantopoulos just alluded to, you know, I'm getting an increasing number of people that want public comment in these meetings. Now, we can't really accommodate that with Zoom, and I understand that, but I don't really know that I have an appetite for surrendering the fiscal court meeting for 3 weeks, because not only do we meet in there, but if planning and zoning is planning on going back to live meetings in June, they'll have a meeting in early June, I expect. Usually it's the first Tuesday of the month. So you've got at least our meeting and planning and zoning and whatever other boards and committees plan on using. And I'm not sure that that's going to work for the public. I mean, as much as I want the public to be able to vote absentee, there's also going to be live voting, I understand, on election day at Campbell. I was told, I may stand corrected, but there will be polls set up at Campbell.
That's not been approved by State Board of Elections yet.
But that's being planned, right? That's proposed.
Yes, but you have to have absentee voting. You cannot get around that. I mean, that's the law. That's a KRS statute. You have to have absentee voting, and you have to accommodate your voters.
Sure.
And unfortunately, we've never had this problem before. But we don't have a room that they can sit 6 feet apart with all the paraphernalia that they're going to have to go to mail out all these. They are expecting a 50% turnout.
How
And
much?
that's what 50%. And that's what we have to, the State Board of Elections and Michael Adams, Secretary of State, told us well, he's not Secretary of State. Yes, he is. Yeah, I'm getting myself confused. That we have to accommodate for that many people.
Michelle, Madam Clerk, would you entertain, if we can help you in any way, I don't care to use the room, but just because we've been away and I'm getting pressure for people that want to come in and make comments, that we assist in moving those into your office locked and then moving them back after the meeting.
We cannot move voting machines.
Once you set it up, but as long as you're there, would it be okay to remain in the room, but anything else that needed to be moved and locked up until the meeting was over?
I would probably want to have one of the sheriff's departments to stay in there just to make sure. You know, what you've got to understand is if you were on the ballot, you would, and something comes up, you would want to make sure that was secure and that was unquestionable. And I don't want to get into an audit saying that we did not have everything as it should have been.
If I might, I see both sides, because I too am getting a lot of pressure about public comment. And it's something that we need to get back to as soon as possible. And we can't get there soon enough. So I wonder, could we do both? And I understand what the other magistrates are saying. They're trying to do both, but maybe it's easier for us to find another location for our June fiscal court meeting, and have a regularly scheduled meeting in a different location. Is that possible? Can we do that?
It wouldn't be regularly scheduled because it wouldn't be in the correct location under the ordinance, I believe. Am I right about that,
Correct.
William?
That's what I was afraid you were going to say. So if we're going to have public comment, it has to be in the fiscal courtroom for the most part.
Well,
I will, go ahead, William.
you could have a special meeting at the extension office perhaps. Now, I'm not pretending to know their schedule availability, but you'd be confined then to your agenda. It wouldn't be a general meeting. And you could, have public comment on whatever basis the presiding officer, Judge Pace, determined it was going to be, whether he restricted only the items on the agenda or public comment generally.
I can't vouch for there's no way I can vouch for what the schedule is of the extension center. I will say that it's been brought to my attention in the past week that apparently, magistrates aren't as willing to move meetings and, have the schedule change, and probably not as willing to do it as I am. My initial thought when Michelle asked was, if this is what you need and this is for the elections, let's do it. But certainly there's been a lot of pushback regarding these meetings and changing the schedules and so forth. And so I don't want to do anything to throw you guys off course. That's frankly why I put it on this agenda, because, I feel like you fellas want to make that call. So I'm going to let you make that call. I don't know when the extension is available. I can tell you that earlier, originally we were meeting live in person. And then there were some magistrate requests that, hey, we need to observe social distancing. So then we started to meet 6 feet apart. Folks didn't like that. And the request was made that we meet on Zoom. And so we started meeting on Zoom, and then we start meeting on Zoom. And, some of the problems with meeting on Zoom, there's complaints about, and it gets frustrating to me because obviously people like to complain a lot, but they're not the ones having to make the decision to try to accommodate everyone. So, maybe that's just the way I'm wired. I wanted to accommodate Michelle. I can tell you that in regards to even our other location we meet at from time to time, which is over at the technical college, they have at BCTC, they have said that they can accommodate us. Now that was about a month ago. Maybe something has changed out there, but I did request their location earlier so we could have more room for the social distancing meeting. And they said they couldn't do it. And I don't know how that'll apply to the extension either. So, I just want you guys to know you're totally going out, whatever you decide, you're totally going out on a limb, and we may run into scheduling problems. And I do apologize if that affects anyone's schedule and if that inconveniences the public. But here it is. The elections are coming up, and the county clerk is requesting to keep these elections secure. She has to have the fiscal courtroom, and apparently there's no alternative that I can guarantee.
Then I'll offer this, and I've wavered back and forth on this quite a bit, but I will say this: I think the uncompromised election is probably more. I hate to discount or public comment, but an uncompromised election is probably a little more important than one more meeting without public comment. So I suppose I will support giving up the fiscal courtroom. Although I hate to, I'd rather have public comment, but I also don't want to compromise an election. So that's my thought.
We still need a motion if we're going to actually vote. We're totally discussing without motions right now.
Oh, my bad. I will make a motion to
Okay, can I say something real fast?
support the order.
Okay, so in my original letter, I put till June 30th, but this order has June 23rd on there. I want to clarify that because for the first time ever also, we can accept ballots up until June 29th as long as they were postmarked by June 23rd. So therefore, the night of the election, we will not call the results like we normally will because they will not, we can call them, but they won't be official. So therefore, the machine has to stay up in that room until June 29th, which is on a Saturday. We're going to have to come in and finalize the election.
What you're saying is you still have to accept ballots until after the election. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's,
So in that letter that you all have got, I've requested to June 30th, but this order says June 23rd.
okay.
You all realize that it's till June 30th.
So that would be
That'd
the
be an
entire
amendment.
month of June, and 2 fiscal court meetings would not be held.
That sounds correct.
And that's why I want to clarify that before you all vote on it.
Has there been a motion in a second?
There's been a motion made by Magistrate Elkins. If nobody else wants to second it, I'll second it.
I'll
I told her
second it.
Okay, go ahead, Magistrate Graham.
And I think, we're kind of a conundrum, but what the county attorney, well, not in a conundrum, I shouldn't say that, but I know we need to accommodate the elections and I agree with that. But I think with what county attorney just said is maybe on the special meeting, if we put on the agenda, comments regarding items on the agenda and we try to meet in a special location to where people can comment on those items that are relating to the agenda, just until we can get through June and get back into the courthouse in July, I think would be that's a compromise on that. So I can get on board with that.
I will say, go ahead, Robert.
That was the way I understood the county attorney's opinion. So that would of the options we have, that's probably the best.
Even if we can't schedule something at the extension and we have to stay on a Zoom conference meeting, I have seen where in regards to LGEA and county road agreement, open discussion and public comment, that there is a form out there that a lot of other judge executives are using, allowing people to send in questions in advance to a Zoom meeting that the judge executive would then read to everyone involved in the meeting. So it's not impossible to take discussion via Zoom if that's our only option we've got. It just needs to be included, I believe, in the posting that you make on the courthouse door. That's my understanding thus far. So if that helps anybody.
Just something to think about, because it relates to all of this is what you just said, the LGA, and I think you're referring to we have to have, I think before the next, is it after the first reading of the budget or before the second where we
I
have
believe
to
it
have
just
the
has to
public
be,
hearings?
it has to be this month. I don't know that it necessarily relates directly to the budget.
Gotcha.
Judge, I emailed to Janet Townsend a corrected version of that order to June 30th, should it pass.
Okay. Will you accept that as a friendly amendment, Magistrate Elkins?
I will, yes.
Okay, motion has been made by Magistrate Elkins, seconded by Magistrate Graham. Amendment has been, well, I'll offer the amendment since I don't think William can. And it's accepted as a friendly amendment by Magistrate Elkins. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of allowing the clerk to use the fiscal courtroom to secure elections during the month of June, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion also carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Last item on the agenda, item number 8, well, no, not last item, but last action item, I suppose. Consider approval of an order regarding an interlocal agreement with Bath County for inmate services. Do I have a motion? I think that Daniel made a motion and Greg seconded.
That'll work.
No, I wasn't
Okay.
making a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
think Greg, I'm going to say, is making a motion then. Do I have a second? Anyone?
I don't have a copy of this agreement.
You don't?
No.
It was in the email, Joe. I don't know, you were on a separate scan email than I was.
Oh, okay.
You want me to read it out loud to you, Joe?
Yes, if you would, please.
Okay. I'm going to read the order to you. There's some verbiage that I think would be better to cover in brief after it. But the order is an order of the Clark County Fiscal Court approving an interlocal agreement with Bath County for inmate services. Whereas the Clark County Jail has available space for the housing and care of out-of-county inmates, and Bath County is in need of such space and services. And whereas Clark County and Bath County have negotiated an interlocal agreement for the inmates of Bath County to be housed in the Clark County Jail at the rate of $35 per inmate per day, and such other terms are set out in the interlocal agreement. Now therefore be it ordered by the Clark County Fiscal Court as follows. Section 1, that the proposed interlocal agreement for inmate services in the Clark County Jail for Bath County inmates is approved. Section 2, the Clark County Judge Executive is authorized to execute any documents necessary to carry out the provisions of this order. Section 3, all previous orders or parts thereof in conflict herewith, to the extent of said conflict, are hereby repealed. And then it has, the the motion and all the other things. If you'd like an explanation of what's inside of the next pages of this document, I believe County Attorney Elkins actually prepared it. He may be able to brief you on it. And I will add that for this particular agreement, if there's any concerns, I don't think that Bath County needs us to necessarily act tonight, or at least when I spoke to their judge executive, he didn't indicate so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. County Attorney Elkins, is there anything in this document that might be unusual or may need to be explained?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you know, they're with respect to transportation, those matters, you know, are subject to negotiation. But if you agree to offer these services on these terms and Bath County accepts it, then all's good. And I think, Judge, you and I could agree that Bath County has inmates inside the Clark County Detention Center now at this rate, but they requested that it be reduced to writing.
That's correct.
The idea that we came up with.
Right. So
Can we-
any further discussion? Anyone?
You're on mute, Travis.
Thank you, Daniel. I have a question, Judge. Should we change it
Sure.
from Clark County Jail to Clark County Detention Center? Just a question. I have no problem with what's in them.
I don't have a problem with that if the original mover wants to accept it as a friendly amendment.
It may not be necessary. I don't know. Just a question.
Greg, are you the one who made the motion? Do you want to accept that?
I don't really, I mean, I don't see a need in it, but I don't see a need in not, so y'all accept it.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Who made-
opposed? I think it's unanimous, Michelle.
Who made the second? I just had Elkins down as the first. Who made the second motion?
Who seconded the original motion? Was that you, Daniel?
No, I didn't second it.
Magistrate Davis? Was that you? Was it you?
Joe.
Was it Joe?
I'll second it.
I think it was Joe, yes.
Okay. All right.
Judge, just for safety's sake, for certain you now have a motion second, I would suggest that you take the vote again.
Okay. Motion made by Magistrate Elkins with the friendly amendment from Magistrate Thompson, seconded by Magistrate Graham. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion does carry. We have no items for closed session, so we'll move on to a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is
Second.
there a second? Motion made by Magistrate Elkins, seconded by Magistrate Constantopoulos. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjourning respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion also carries. Good night, folks.
Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.